The following story, What If Nobody Forgave, was written by Barbara Marshman. In a land far away, a wise old man who knew a great deal about people because he traveled from place to place arrived at a strange village. In this town, all the people were carrying what seemed to be great bundles on their backs. They couldn't look around very well, and they never looked up because of the heavy burdens they carried. Puzzled, the wise old man finally stopped the young fellow. "My good man, I am a stranger to your land and am fascinated by these large bundles you all carry, but never seem to put down. What is their purpose?" "Oh, these," answered the young fellow in a matter-of-fact way, "these are our grudges." "My," said the wise old man, "that's a lot of grudges to collect at your age." "Oh, they're not all mine. Most of them were passed down in my family." The young fellow heaved a weary sigh. "See that man over there? I have quite a lot of grudges against his family. His great-great-grandfather called mine a horse thief when they both wanted to be elected mayor." The wise man looked around and shook his head sadly. "You all look so unhappy. Is there no way to get rid of these burdens?" "We've forgotten how," said the young fellow, shifting his load a little. "You see, at first we were proud of our grudges. Tourists came from miles around. But after a few years, Grudgeville became a dreary place. Nobody came, and we had forgotten how to stop holding our grudges." "If you really want to get rid of these grudges," said the wise old man, "I think I know 5 magic words that will do the trick." "You do?" asked the fellow hopefully. "That would be a miracle. I'll go and have the mayor call the people of Grudgeville together." And off he went as fast as his grudges would let him. The mayor lost no time calling the people to the village square. The mayor and the wise old man stood on a platform where they could see all the hunched-over villagers. When the people had quieted down, the mayor said, "Good people of Grudgeville, a wonderful thing has happened. A very wise stranger has come into our town. He says he could tell us the magic words that will rid us of these grudges we have carried for generations. How many of you would like to be able to straighten up? Have your grudges disappear? Look at the world in a whole new way? Listen to the wise words of our visitor, then, and do as he tells you." "My friends, these are simple words, yet some people find them hard to say," said the wise stranger. "I think you have the courage to speak them. The trick is that you must say them to each other and truly mean them. The first 2 words are, 'I'm sorry.' Can you say them? The other 3 are, 'I forgive you.' Can you say that? Now say those words to each other." There was a long pause, then a low grumble from the townspeople. First one person, and then another, said the words. Soon they were all saying them to each other, quietly at first and then louder. And then, would you believe it? Just like the wise man predicted, the grudges disappeared. What joy there was in the town. People were heard saying, "Look how those trees have grown." And, "Is that you, Jim? How good to see your face." There was dancing in the streets that day, and it wasn't long before the mayor changed the name of the town to Joytown.
I'm almost there. Good morning. It's nice to have everybody with us. We have a bunch of guests. That's lovely. And Luke 2:19 in the Christian scriptures speaks some of the most famous words about Mary, mother of Jesus. And Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. We don't talk all that much about pondering these days, especially in our hearts, and yet we do. We sometimes speak about nurturing things within us. Some of us are able to take something wonderful and let it glow like a chalice within us, to illuminate the world with our new project, our deep thoughts, or our love. More of us, however, find that a challenge. Too many of us are like the folks in Grudgeville and nurture only frustration and irritation in our hearts. And let's be clear, This is a lovely little story, but who here believes what the old man, and you know he had to be a rabbi, right? I mean, this was not a wandering Unitarian, showed up and said, say these 5 magic words and be healed, that everyone said, oh, hallelujah, what a great idea. Howdy, neighbor, I'm so sorry, I forgive you, and presto changeo, life was better. We grudge holders are made of sterner stuff than that. Now, non-liturgical traditions such as ours do not confess our sins. Do we have them? That's always a big question up for debate. Nor do we wait for an assurance of pardon. It's not part of our Sunday service or our liturgical year. We don't have Ash Wednesday. We don't have Yom Kippur, where we must go and make amends before beginning again. We could, because it's part of our traditions. So we take all these things and we fester them in our hearts. Betsy Rose, before she became a Buddhist, studied with Thich Nhat Hanh and left such things as this behind, wrote a song called, Why Should I Forgive and Forget When I Can Remember and Blame? It's not in the public domain. I couldn't find it, but I remember that much of the chorus. I remember it as sarcastic and hilarious and seductive. As much as we say, oh, we would never do such a thing. Never hold on to all the ills done us. Respectfully, I disagree. I won't say all, but many of us would. Meanwhile, back in Grudgeville, and this came to me through Christina, these were probably perfectly good grudges that they had spent generations developing. Over the time, they had been embellished and embroidered so that the grudge became even more elaborate. It's probably, I sort of see it as part of the folk wear that you wear, like each village has their own particular, leaves and grudges. It's probably just me. Probably no one here has ever done such a thing. Grudges serve us. They protect us from taking risks. Why meet anyone new if you're only going to be disappointed in love? Why try anything if someone's going to steal our ideas or interfere in our success? But grudges only serve us so long. It's easy to get hemmed in and never dare anything. In the long run, holding grudges is not healthy for us. We know this because PhDs, of course. Someone did a study. Many studies. But sweating, heart rates, and blood pressure go up when we're actively rehearsing our grudges. They have a lot in common, not just letters. But just because science tells us so, as Americans, we exercise our right to not believe in science every day. Don't think that someone didn't publish a new, soon-to-be bestseller on January 1st that tells us how to nurture our grudges for good. It suggests that we build a grudge cabinet so that we can remember that John got sloppy drunk at our house one night and that we should always meet him at a bar if we wanted to go out with him. Why indeed should I forgive and forget when I can remember and blame? In the long run, the article suggests that you construct and catalog your grudge and then study it to make yourself more of an agent in the story, rewriting history, and then forgive so that you can experience forgiveness. Okay, there's some pieces in it, but I don't really think you need to build a cabinet of some exotic wood. It all seems a bit privileged and precious, don't you think? Forgiving and forgetting doesn't mean not learning anything from our lessons. It's not something naive or trivial. It is, however, refusing to fester things in our hearts. Tidy it up. Don't give it house room. It is no surprise to anyone that people can be annoying. We're different. We get on each other's nerves, sometimes that very last one. We can spend our lives on that which narrows our world down to something very small. I suspect, however, if we turned our bulletins to the back page, we would find nothing in the 7 principles that suggests that grudge holding is a spiritual practice. We're unlikely to find it listed as a spiritual practice in any of our 6 sources either. I started thinking about this sermon because someone dropped into my house the other day, and I asked her, as someone does one's visitors, "How are you?" "Trump has to go," she said. "I can't think about anything else." She has the nails and cuticles to prove that she's obsessing. You know, there are things that I believe that is worth putting myself out there for against impossible odds. I think that this year is not a bad year to take the Red Queen as our motto and believe 6 impossible things before breakfast. But fretting over a politician is not the bridge we want to die on, because that isn't going to change anything. Why waste our lives? When I fester, it makes me angry. And in situations like this, I differentiate between angry and enraged. There are policy decisions being made that I find truly despicable. A year ago, I would have said unthinkable. I have been proven wrong about what's unthinkable many times. I refuse to allow a politician to paralyze me, or at least for long. And maybe if I say it here in public, I will hold myself to that. It's easy to get hooked. A friend of mine always used to go, stopped. But then, if we inhale and exhale, we simply can begin again. Small acts, not of random kindness, but deliberate kindness, kindness with a goal. And generosity, joined together with the small, deliberate acts of other people, can not only lead us out of our paralysis, but can also lead toward real changes in the world. My rage that people be disregarded is fuel for that work I have to do. The anger, it's just something to stew in. Now, right about the time that I got to this point in my sermon writing, the 3-year-old upstairs was lying on her floor at about 10 p.m. at night, with the karaoke machine on at full volume. She was screaming and blowing a horn into the mic. One of those horns. She also was singing. She has an interesting relationship with tonality. I can't say this is an unusual thing. Occasionally, it's overwhelming. That night, it sort of was. And each time it happens, I get to decide how I'm going to react. I have lived in apartments off and on my entire life. And this is just what it is to live in an apartment. People are who they are. The family is lovely in so many ways. Volume is not the one that I would choose. It may surprise many of you here, but I actually live fairly silently. Now, I can fester this in my heart, along with other unspoken assaults and misdeeds, or I can recognize that this is how they live their lives. I can take time out to dwell on it and not finish the sermon, or I can take a Tylenol and figure out what I want to do to keep moving on the things that matter to me. For instance, I could do my wash. I don't need to be thinking to do that. The dryer I have to be more careful about. But it is not my job to teach their family. It is my job to let go of my need to have things different. It is my job to work on the important things in my life. It is my job to work for justice. It is my job to use my heart for pondering gratitude and possibilities. I really need to learn to ignore that horn. As it was, I used it as a prod, as I said, to do a load of laundry. I'm not always that successful, but then I'm not always writing about judges or grudges. I'm having trouble with that, aren't I? And not that I have any trouble with judging either, but it was particularly hilarious that it would show up there. Unitarian Universalists, the whole beloved mishmash of us, have agreed on deeds, not creeds. Grudge holding is almost anti-deed. It paralyzes us from taking the small steps that make a difference. As the story we heard suggests, it prohibits us from seeing our neighbors' faces. I am happy to know Sherry Jacobson and her daughter Kate. Many of you here know her as well, and so grateful they were at the border during the winter holidays. They were her words that I shared over the past week. And they served at a welcome center for people being admitted to the U.S. for asylum hearings. Sherry sent back stories. I was struck by how important it was that the immigrants understood there were people in this country who want to welcome them. And through Sherry and Kate's witness, we understood how outrageously wicked this situation is. Now, not all of us can be at the border, but we can see what's going on through their eyes and find ways to be helpful, to make a difference. That's what we need to know. First, that things are happening, and secondly, that we can be helpful. And if not there, somewhere. Sherry and Kate just announced they'd be happy to come out and speak. I've been thinking about asking them to come to us, and Sarah wrote and asked if we wanted to ask them. So we did. They will come. We just have to figure out a time. Politically, it's a scary time right now. There's no sense denying that. But we get to choose how we deal with this world. Knowing me, you probably suspect I'm not going to suggest curling up in the fetal position. Won't help us or the world. But as humans, there's this nasty little part of us. We tend to like bad news. I used to laugh at my husband and his brother all the time because, oh, you know what happened? And I'm like, oh, and my brother-in-law's mom used to call him, remember John? Well, he's dead. Yeah. We like dwelling on it or in it. We like pondering it in our heart. What if this happens? What if that? Any number of things could happen. But whatever catastrophes befall us individually, communally, or even nationally can be mitigated by undertaking the persistent work in our hearts, in our lives, in this community, or in the wider world. Deeds, not creeds. We're part of a tribe that can make a difference. And in turn, that difference we make in the world will make a difference in our hearts. It will make a difference in what we focus on. It will make a difference in how we thrive and help the world thrive. Recently, I found this as I was reading. It was posted by the Reverend Patrick O'Neill, member of the First Unitarian Congregational Society of Brooklyn. Among the most accomplished and fabled tribes of Africa, no tribe is considered to have warriors more fearsome or more intelligent than the mighty Maasai. It is perhaps surprising, then, to learn that the traditional greeting that passed between Maasai warriors, Kaseria Injira, one would always say to another, it means, how are the children? It is still the traditional greeting among the Maasai, acknowledging the high value that the Maasai always place on their children's well-being. Even warriors with no children of their own would always give the traditional answer, all the children are well. Meaning, of course, that peace and safety prevail, that the priorities of protecting the young, the powerless, are in place. That Maasai society had not forgotten its reason for being, its proper functions and responsibilities. All the children are well means that life is good. It means that the daily struggles for existence do not preclude proper caring for the young. I wonder how it might affect our consciousness of our own children's welfare if in our culture we took to greeting each other with this daily question, and how are the children? I wonder if we heard that question and passed it along a dozen times a day, if it would begin to make a difference in the reality of how children are thought of or cared about in our own country. I wonder if every adult among us, parent and non-parent alike, felt an equal weight for the daily care and protection of all the children in our community, in our town, in our state, in our country. I wonder if we could truly say without any hesitation, the children are well. Yes, the children are very well. What would it be like if the minister began every worship service by asking the question, and how are the children? If every town leader had to answer the question at the beginning of every meeting, and how are the children? Are they well? Wouldn't it be interesting to hear their answers? What would it be like, I wonder? End quote. There are other questions, depending upon our values, we might want to ask. How are the women? How are the elders? How are the waters? How is the earth? What are the challenges that threaten their well-being? Where does the abundance lie that we might nurture them? So let us use the quiet that follows to reflect on what it is you treasure in your heart and ponder. You might want to consider anything you find lingering there that you want to tidy away and never deal with again. What serves you? What doesn't? All of us carry things that don't serve us. Why bear the weight? Putting treasured things in our hearts to ponder is a simple spiritual exercise of repetition. In the column Reverend J.T., Dr. Jen, and I wrote for the daily item, we suggested spending 5 minutes a day at 2 p.m. or some other more convenient time, repeating something like the Golden Rule or singing a Say Barnwell song, I Love Everybody. We might want to ask ourselves, and how are the children? Fill up your heart with whatever kindness works for you. It feels a great deal better than a grudge over the long haul. Take January and let it be a month to ponder wonderful things. And then when you're ready, begin to act on them. Blessed be.